Hey, yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is that you may be checking in to watch this quick video. Welcome to week 6 of the course. You finished Eastman, congratulations. We spent the last 3 weeks on Eastman, and as you'll hear me say often, I think, based upon the work that I've seen from this group, you guys are doing a fantastic job with the course. I'll probably say this just about every week because I really think that this course and this subject matter is something that people are deeply interested in hearing about, talking about, writing about. And so there always seems to be a great amount of enthusiasm for this particular course. I think it's just the way that we as Native people have been portrayed throughout history, and it's just almost like a breath of fresh air sometimes, I think, to read literature by Native people. So, and even though a lot of the work by Eastman, a lot of the subject matter, a lot of the context, a lot of some of the things we've talked about in terms of his, that I'm sure I'll be reading in your response papers, are disturbing and tragic events. It's always so, I don't know, uplifting for me, I think, to see how to get to read firsthand accounts for how people survived. Speaking of your work for Eastman, before we turn the final page, as always, I'll throw it out. If you have any further questions about him or his work, I'm happy to answer those via email. Your response papers are due. As always, I'm making this video announcement on a Monday morning. So I've checked in to look at. It looks a little bit light, which isn't I've checked in on the Blackboard page to see what works of who's managed to submit their response paper by this point. I check on the activity for the discussion boards and stuff on a Monday, just to make sure where people's heads are sort of at. There's maybe 8 or 9 or 10 of you who've completed the response paper. That's not too bad. I'd like to see participation happen in a bit of a more timely manner, but I do understand that you have busy working lives. So if you have not submitted the response paper, you need to do so as soon as possible. If for some reason you did not make, by the time you receive this, if for some reason you did not make the midnight deadline last night, get your paper in as soon as possible. There will not be a penalty assessed. You do have a discussion board where you'll need to at least take the time to post what you think will be your thesis and kind of a brief outline of what you may think about talking about. You'll need to sort of comment as well, right? So take the time to get your work done and get it in as soon as possible. All right, let's turn the page and talk about Leslie Silko. You'll be reading Leslie Marmon Silko's Storyteller for this week. You'll need to read, I've got a copy of the book, just so happens right here. This is my copy. This is the most recent edition. You may have an older copy. I looked for my older copy today. I think I must have loaned it out to a student at some point and it didn't come back. That's okay, that happens. There's an older red copy that's sort of laid out more horizontally, but I think this time that I gave the bookstore just this copy that I just showed you. So that's the text that you'll need to acquire. If you happen to have an older edition, that's fine too. Just your page numbers will be off by a little bit, and that's okay. You're about to read a very unique work, a collection of works, and what I think holds together as a body of works in Storyteller. It may help you before you begin reading. There is one of the Native American Writers series. It's a bit dated, but I'm sort of restricted as to what videos I can show you guys in biographies. I'm sort of restricted by what the library has on hand. In that, and there's reasons for that because things need to have a transcript and be captioned. But it is a unique interview of Leslie Silko that's on the assignment page. There'll be a link for it. It's from the Native American Writers series. It's just a real brief interview of her. It may help you to gain some understanding of her as a writer before you begin to read the works. I would classify Storyteller, the book you're going to read, as an autobiography. Some have called it an experimental autobiography. It's also, I might classify it mostly as an autoethnography. So where in Eastman you were reading a text as an autobiography that was, I would argue anyway, that was highly individualized and gave you a specific historical perspective based upon an individual who happened to lead this incredible life and who happened to be born and lived during a period of time for his Dakota people that was uh, rather dynamic in how cultural change, at the pace at which cultural change was occurring, and the role that he played. But it's a highly individualized narrative. I don't think that I would ever read Charles Eastman's text and come away from it thinking that I have a deep understanding of what it was like to be for the majority of the Dakota people during this time period. I think I come away from reading Eastman thinking that I've just read a pretty highly individualized account of this particular life of someone who's Dakota and who attempted to convey, in the limited space that he had and the framing that he had, what his life was like and what the possibilities were. I think possibly for Dakota people or for a different view of Native people. Silko's book is deeply indebted to place, deeply indebted. She's Laguna Pueblo. Pueblos are, I'm not going to sit here and list them off, but there's Acoma Pueblo, Laguna. I can't think of I can't think of the various saints. Anyway, there's several pueblos set out across the Southwest. They are related in some ways to other folks in the Southwest, but they have distinct language families, 6 or 7 different language families just within the Pueblo communities, Keres and other languages, Acoma language. So, but she is deeply indebted to place, language, the oral tradition, and the old stories that she heard from her family, and common everyday stories, and the old and what might be considered sacred stories. There's some secondary readings that I think you may want to read as well this week if you can, at least read around in them. For Silko, there's not this distinct line between everyday stories and the old ancient stories, the old what anthropologists might consider to be more authentic or more sacred. Or more deeply indebted to a certain sense of a belief system. For Silko, all the stories matter. And these are the stories that she was heard as a child, and so she's taken the time to provide them to us as readers. And I think in some ways, it's as Thomas King once said, in the end, all we are really, we're born and we die, and all we really are from start to finish is just this collection of stories, these narratives that we tell ourselves and about our place. But I think you can read this book as an individualized account, but also one that is deeply indebted and is attempting, in some sense anyway, to convey her understanding of herself as a Laguna and her representation of her community at large based upon the stories that she's told. Okay, I've gone on way too long with this. I will shut it down. Just have fun with the reading. Get your work done. Any questions at all, send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll talk next week. Yeah, watch that.